Right now, then. Back again. Very excited. My old teammate.
Yeah.
Team Dungeon. I'm wearing the, representing.
Looking good, John.
I'm trying. Gotta keep that beach body going.
Beach body, okay. There we go. It's going to be a long night.
Yes, it is. It's going to be a long night.
Seth, it's great to have you in the show, man.
Thank you very much, Josh. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So what's been going on with you anyway?
Well, after the last episode with everything, I'm not saying lost interest in arm wrestling at all, but certainly slowed me down a little bit, my motivation and all. And I've been thinking about work again. So I've been working a lot, and that's always good for arm wrestling. Physical labor, right? But I haven't had as much time to train because I'm no spring chicken anymore, and it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. I know what you mean. We only have one spring chicken on this show.
It's me, guys. Hey.
In case anybody needed.
The one that can pull every day.
Yeah, seriously.
Hey, come on.
So what do you think of, I don't know, man. That's the spring chicken thing. We don't talk about that a lot on here because there's so many people who are in their 40s who are still dominating, but
70s.
I was in 70s in the case of Norm. I know, Norm's just one up in Maine. That was crazy. I mean, someone was just telling me, I think the week before that tournament, I think Norm's finally starting to slow down, and then he went up to Maine and won. So he does know how to do it.
For sure.
Yeah, the problem is him slowing down is still like people still need to speed up, which is scary at 70-something years old.
He's setting a bar for everybody.
He's setting a bar for everybody. Yeah. But, we always talk about so many people that are still dominant in their 40s and 50s in arm wrestling, but you do heal a lot more slowly than when you're in your 20s and 30s.
True.
I mean, although only one of us on the show right now is out of commission for a shoulder too. He happens to be the youngest one, so
after Saturday, Josh.
Well, after you win Saturday, that's right.
Well,
we can say that. You can't say that. Other people can say nice things about you. You can't say that about yourself. That's how it works.
I have to make weight first. Wait for.
You have to win, John.
Okay.
It's called the power of attraction. You know what you want. Go and get it.
Oh,
that's right.
I'll be there. Don't worry.
I know you will.
I got to make weight first, I haven't had to cut weight in a little while, so I'm in the middle of cutting right now. I'm a little ornery.
My climbing gym just put in a sauna.
Did they really?
Yeah, man. Saunas are the best thing ever. I love them.
I called the hotel and they don't have a sauna.
That's crazy. You need a hotel.
Yeah, well.
You can make your own
sauna. Remember, I told myself, Josh, that because I got as big as I could be for a meanie, that I wasn't going to make 165. I said it. I'm like, I'm just going to be fat, and there's no way I can drop the weight. Well, I'm making 165.
Yep.
So.
Oh, yeah, you are.
Yeah.
I did the same thing.
Both of my legs.
What's that, Seth?
I did the same thing, told myself I didn't care about weighing 195 pounds anymore, but I went up to 205, but today I'm 195 pounds. So.
Yeah, it's funny how that shit works, huh?
We're trained, yeah.
Yeah, you and Rob Vision annoy me greatly with that because it seems like you guys can do basically whatever you want. You always end up being right around 200. I'm like, how those bastards do that? Man, it's crazy. I feel like I have to eat salads half the week in order to stay at 205.
I don't have an explanation. I haven't figured it out. I don't eat, I eat healthy, but not overly healthy. John probably eats a lot better than I do. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm just lucky to weigh 200 pounds. Mm. But we work out a lot and all that, so I'm sure that helps.
It does help. Yeah, I mean, yeah. And Rob does the same thing. He works out all the time. But, I mean, Rob, you can only understand why he weighs 200 when you see him with shorts on because his upper body is like, Schwarzenegger style.
Of course.
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
real problem with Rob is like, people look 195 and you're like, damn, or 200 and you're like, damn, that guy just walked around 200. I hate that guy for doing that because it's hard for you. But then the real thing that you hate Rob for is that he looks 225.
I know.
You're like, there's no way this guy's 200 pounds. He steps on a scale at New England's last year.
Mm-hmm.
He steps on a scale wearing a tracksuit holding the coffee at 199. He's like, do I need to strip, Josh? And you're like, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Well, his body's trained.
Right.
Wants to weigh 195 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it is.
When he weighed 210, he looked 240. You know what I mean? He's just one of those guys, his upper body always looks 25 pounds bigger than it really is. So people are like, there's no way that guy walks around at 200 pounds. Yes, he does.
Mm-hmm.
And you experimented with going up a weight class, Seth, a couple of years ago, right? You're like 220, 230 for a little while there. Is that right?
Yeah. I think the highest I went was 235.
So what was what was the motivation about trying to go up and challenge the big guys? And then why did you go back down to our weight class?
I decided that I wanted to gain weight. It was easier at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't figured out my diet, so I figured it'd be easier to gain weight and get stronger and get bigger. And then I got sick for about 8 months, and I lost all that weight.
Mm-hmm.
And until I figured out why I was sick, it was just a battle to even keep food down.
Yeah.
So here I am again, 200 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when you got big too. You got, it wasn't, certainly wasted. You got strong. You got strong during that time. And I remember back then too. That was probably 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I remember we had this big plan, the team dungeon plan. I remember it was going to be me at 65, Ron at 95, you at 225, and then Max and heavies. And then that's what the big motivation was. I don't think you were even 225 at that point when we decided that. Because I remember going to Chicago in 2014 with my broken ass right hand, and I was the only one that had to cut. I remember how miserable I was, and we went there, and basically the plan didn't work out so well because you didn't really care for 225s, and Ron didn't care for 195s. And as soon as we got done, Ron's like, "I'm going back to 165." I'm like, "Damn it! I just got out of your weight class. Like I've been battling him at 176 forever." And it's like finally we're not competing against each other for once, and then all of a sudden he's like, I'm going to 65. I'm like, damn you.
that was the beginning of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I still have the picture of you sleeping in the airport. That's part of the trip, I think.
Yeah, that was one of those Chicago trips, yeah. We had another one with the UAL. That was just a nightmare.
That's right.
Where it was like, it took like 13 hours to get to the venue from the airport.
I didn't think we were going to make it.
We almost didn't. Like weigh-ins stopped at 8 o'clock at night. We left all of our houses like 6 a.m. Like there's no way we're going to miss weigh-ins. There's no way. It's January, so the weather is terrible.
I think we got there at 9:30, and the weigh-ins were still going on, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, It was horrible though. Yeah, we're not sure if we're going to make weigh-ins, and we flew there, and it was like almost 18 hours later.
Oh my
Yes.
God, that's horrible.
I'm just remembering the hotel room. You couldn't have the garbage can. You couldn't go to the bathroom and have the garbage can in the bathroom at the same time.
Oh, that was.
But that's what's fun about it.
Yeah.
Forever, I have these stories about arm wrestling.
Yeah.
And friends.
Yeah, and we were in a Walmart in the bad part of Chicago, and remember that black dude called Ron a player. Remember that?
Yeah.
And Ron's like, "Yeah, I am pretty." Like, just shut up, Ron. No.
That's right.
And we were like, we're not ever going back to Chicago. Chicago sucks. That was a horrible trip. And then we went back again, and then we had a good time where we went into the Trump Towers and terrorized all those people.
Ron dragged us into Trump Towers, thinking like arm wrestlers. And everybody with all these Richie Rich with suits on. We almost got kicked out. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, we almost did.
What I had learned is that Chicago is not necessarily shitty. It's a huge city.
Yeah.
And now that I've been around Chicago, I don't have anything negative to say about it.
No, it was great. We had a great time that second. It was just the trip. The whole trip was doomed the first time.
Yeah.
It was just a doomed trip from the beginning. And then the second one was, I remember, it was great. We had a great time.
And I just went and I stayed in a whole different part of town. It was completely different. It was more business. Mm-hmm. So on the weekend, it was, everybody was gone.
Oh, nice.
Fly home, I figure.
Right.
I read somewhere that all the violence in Chicago that's going on there these days is caused by like 2,000 people. Like police have a list of people that are, serious gang members or doing that kind of stuff. So it puts things in perspective when there's, 7 million people that live there?
Right.
It's actually a very tiny, that's crazy. But that's what we see in the news anyway. Mm-hmm. So I get people asking questions for you, Seth, of course.
Yeah.
Let's see here. First of all, a lot of people saying hello, and Jonathan Laba is telling everybody that you're one of the nicest people he's ever met.
Thank you, John. What's happening?
Yep. And Michael Pelletier is giving everybody a heads up that you gave him great tips on developing hand strength. So let's talk about that. I was actually telling some people when you're coming on the show that we were talking about how integrated and powerful your hit is, and that I definitely want to hear your opinion about that. But I mean, we were talking about whether or not it's something that you just have a genetic propensity towards, and I was telling you about the machines that you use down there I don't know how much you rely on them, but they certainly look like they're pretty good at developing that hit motion that you have. And so I don't know, why don't you talk about the hit thing a little bit and what your opinion is on the ability to develop it versus being born with it or what have you.
Okay, I can do that. Because I try and train that. I try and train what I'm doing at practice, the new guys. So for me, I pretty much learned how to arm wrestle from a few people. Maxwell kind of got me rolling with things. I trained with him for a while. He had already been through the dungeon and knew a lot. And then we started going and training with Klumba and Bresnan. And I started to pick up on things. I learned by watching. And the hit is basically weight in motion. So if you want to hold 50 pounds, you can hold 50 pounds. But you drop that 50 pounds 2 feet and try and grab it, it's a whole different story. Mm-hmm. So there's my theory behind it. And it was just a matter of practice to get where you're comfortable making that motion legally on that pad. So I guess the bottom line is I set up so I'm comfortable when I'm done. I don't plan on losing. That's not in the cards. So when I'm finished, I want to be comfortable. I don't want to have to fight to get there. It'd be like putting your elbow on the table. I'm sorry, your peg elbow on the table. You're going over, well, you're kind of stopping yourself.
Right.
So along with that, anticipate the go, and that's about all I have to say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What it sounds like to me is that, from training with you and understanding to where your weak spots were, and that you really realized where your weak spots were and you fixed them, is that you made what we all kind of brag about in the sport, which is that it's a really complicated deal, is that you really simplified it to where it's a single motion that goes straight to the table. And really, when you have a simplistic view of anything, usually you can get it done really quick. Now, if you add on strength on top of that, well, now you can do it really quick and strong. So good luck trying to stop it, basically. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's good because like what I've been seeing in your style lately is that you have a good solid hand, which you always have had.
That's kind of from you guys though, with the name Hand Control Worldwide.
Well, you know. So
you guys must be doing something right. I figured I'd jump on board.
But your side pressure's been it looks like to me has been a big focus for you.
Yeah. A lot of people don't have side pressure, so I try and take advantage.
Yeah, I think and going back to the simple versus the complex, is that people do in this sport. We've all trained with them. You'll be pulling them and you'll go, okay, can you go sideways now? Like you're not even going sideways.
Right.
It's almost like people need to have this incredible amount of control on their side of the table with everything that they've got, and then before they even start thinking about hammering sideways. When really, if you would have just hammered sideways at the beginning, you probably would have been done by now. That nice, slow, and controlled back and wrist and all this stuff where you need to be like pulling them off the table basically gives people sometimes a chance to lock in. Whereas if you would just finish the damn match, what are you trying to have these long grinders for if you don't have to?
We've got to get through the whole day. I don't want to be in any long matches.
Right. If I have to be in a long match, it better be in the final.
Right. That's fine.
You know, if I have to, if I absolutely have to. But yeah, I think, you know, the simple, every once in a while you have to inject the simplistic mindset into this, which is just, you know, at the end of the day, what was arm wrestling to begin with? Like before we ever knew about what everything was, you push their arm sideways.
Yeah.
It's like, go back to that sometimes. You know, you might it might do something good for you.
So it's been a matter of hand strength and wrist strength, like the name says, and rotation. Rotation is huge. And if you don't have it, well, you have to have everything. If you're missing something, well, there's your weak point. My weak point now is my fingers. Well, I'm going to fix that. Right. Ron made my fingers swell up Saturday. Relentless. And that's what's going to do it. And then once I get that figured out, I'll find something else.
There's always a weak point. Yep.
I'm sure Paul Talbot will show me where my weak point is because he's been doing it right along.
Sure.
But I did see some video of us arm wrestling, so now I know what he's doing. Maybe if I'm strong enough, I can hold on to it. I haven't proved that yet.
Yeah. It'll be a good match to see. I think a few people have said to me, you know, that your top roll is so amazing. And I was like, have you pulled Seth lately? Because, you know, I think defining what you do as a top roll is kind of silly because that's not what it is. It's much more than that. And that's one of the reasons why I like pulling you, even though it usually doesn't last very long from my point of view. But I like the way that hit is. I like the integration of it, and I like that it's difficult to detect exactly what direction you're going, and that you change it. So I know a lot of people watch it, and I'm like, you know, he's changing this. He's not going the same direction everywhere, and it makes it really difficult to pull you because I think you're a very cerebral puller, and I think that I think it has a big part in your success because I think you do a good job at outthinking people on the table. And you've given me advice many times after we pulled, you know, it was like, oh, you had a good setup, and then I changed it and you didn't change it back, and that's, you know, and that kind of stuff. And I think that people don't give that sort of internal mechanics of the match enough attention. And to me, that's one of your strong points.
You definitely have to think outside the box, I think, and put everything into motion. If I just think about arm wrestling, like John said, and you go sideways, that's just not what it's about. There's a whole world out there, and people used to tell me stuff like, I think Tim told me, Travis, for example, if his body's doing something, it's for a reason. If he puts his foot somewhere, if he wipes his forehead, whatever he's doing, it's for a reason. And that sort of mentality sank in to kind of think that way.
Sure.
And then by watching videos of other people pulling, or when I started this, I traveled everywhere to pull as many different arms as I could and kind of figure out what I'm trying to do here. But I also have an obsessive personality, and arm wrestling kind of stuck for a little while.
Yeah, and, you know, like talking about, you know, cerebral part of the sport, you know, where every little thing means something, you know, really brings up a good topic of like manipulation, right? So it's important in the sport, you know, to, you know, if I go to the table, I believe that I'm going to control what's happening. Doesn't mean I'm going to win or I'm going to lose. It doesn't. That's in whoever's hands, right? I mean, I'm going to do everything I can, but I want to manipulate the situation so my opponent doesn't even know, and more importantly, that the referee doesn't know.
Well, you're very good at that.
Well, you know, you try. Just like you, I had good teachers, but and also, you know, you said thinking outside the box, you know, because I think that's really important too, because I think people get a little too caught up in doing what so and so does because they've had a great success. You know, right. You're not them. I'm not Ron Klemba, and I'm not Tim Bresnan. So taking their pieces of advice is obviously you're going to listen to those people. I'm going to listen to you, Seth. I'm going to listen to Josh. I'm going to listen to everybody.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, like 10% of it's going to work as intended.
Of course.
You know, you have to find your own thing. Yeah, you take bits and pieces, and let's be honest, how much you throw away. It's a lot as far as doing it exactly how they've done it. Maybe you take a piece of their mentality or you take a piece of their philosophy, but, you know, thinking outside the box as far as a sport this small and this new, as far as understanding training and all that kind of stuff, you know, that's the only key to really becoming as best as you can be, is thinking outside the box in a way.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
You know, how is your hand working? How, like, the way my, you know, from my elbow to fingertip is not the same as a lot of 165ers. You know, so I shouldn't be training necessarily like them. Maybe my endurance is different than theirs. Maybe my power output is different than them. Maybe I have, you know, they have injuries that I don't have, or I have injuries that they have. Like, we can't train the same. You know, my left and my right can't train the same because of things that are wrong with it and things that aren't wrong with the other one. You know, it's so when you take all these different factors in, and like, we're just starting to understand how to recover properly. Like, everything's outside the box at this point.
Healing is part of it. You have to know how.
It's a huge part of it. I wish I would have known that when I started, because I could have avoided some of these things, you know. And like, knowing now, like, I've had injuries fairly recently, and come back from them where now they're not issues at all, because I know how to do it. You know.
That's right. That's right.
I think that's important. I mean, I don't know if it's an age factor like we were talking about a few minutes ago, but I mean, I'm using the physical therapy techniques for rehab of shoulder, wrist, and elbow just on a daily basis to stay ahead of the curve. And it makes a difference. I mean, and, you know, and like you said, every arm is different. You see like Simon, Barry, and Cho are doing 300-pound bent rows. And then there's a lot of arm wrestlers who have never done one of those in their life.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And like, people are talking about the length of your arms, Seth, and calling them like gorilla arms, and they are very long. Both of us have long arms, so that totally changes, I think, the kind of things that we should even be doing to develop our genetic, you know, strength, in terms of us having long arms and big hands versus somebody like Simon or Chris Gabi, who has the opposite body type of ours. So you're right, you can't. I mean, as it's taking it all in with a grain of salt, and also, I mean, some people like Brzezinski said he never lifted weights, he never really did any exercises, he just arm wrestled, and that's how many people is that going to work for?
Right.
Exactly.
John.
And let's be honest too, like
John.
and let's be honest too, like, you know, with your body type discussion, which is, you know, very valid, your elbow placement and everything's not even gonna be the same. There's no way you can. You can't ride the front of the pad against everybody. You'll be on their side of the table, or you'll be covering their knuckle. So it's like, you know, you can't even train as far as your body placement's the same. You know, you're going to tell me that someone like Todd Hutchings trains exactly the same way Nicholas Nanasad trains? They can't even set up the same. They can't.
Right. You're bringing up so many topics that we need to discuss. I'm going to have to start writing this stuff down. I think with the age, it's a matter of, we're smarter, for one. You know, you get older, you're wiser. And I have something I call dad power. When I was a kid, my dad was always stronger than me, and I always wondered when would the point come when I could kick my dad's ass. That point never came for me. So I started calling it dad power. And I feel like as we're older, well, now I've been lifting weights for 30 years instead of 5 years or 10 years. And everything's stronger. Tendon strength is a lot. That takes a lot of work.
Sure.
A lot of reps to build tendon strength. It's a whole different animal. So it doesn't really matter to me how much I can bench press. It's more about specifics, like you said, Josh. The tools I build for side pressure or wrist curls or rotation, all the little details, and just do it till you can't do it anymore, as much as you can.
The tendon issue is a great one, because I've had some talks with, I'm trying to get one of them to come on the show about, because we always talk about tendon strength, and obviously we all know what that means, but tendons don't flex like muscles do. They're very static. But what does change with training is their thickness. And so, like, someone who's been arm wrestling a long time, and you feel the tendons and ligaments in their elbow joint, they're so much thicker than the average person, because that's where we're putting maximum pressure. And so I would love to know how they build, how long it takes them to start developing that thickness, and how big they can actually get. Because they don't, I mean, when it comes down to them being stronger, are they stronger or just thicker? I don't know, but I would like someone to come on the show and answer it for me.
I wish I had that one for you. I was told that it takes a lot of reps to build tendon strength, and that's what I shoot for.
Yeah, you know, from what I understand, it's just basically just scar tissue. That's
Mm-hmm.
But it's how what we understand now is how it's laid down correctly. Where it can be laid down incorrectly, and then it's when you start getting things like tendonitis and all that kind of stuff, and shortening of the muscles and blah blah blah. But the big problem is, and what we've realized for a while, but we've just kind of started to get it injected into arm wrestling anyway, is blood flow is the issue for things like ligaments and tendons and stuff. Muscles get tons of it. We all know that. You ever been in a long match? But as far as tendons and recovery and that kind of stuff, it's very slow. And it's unfortunately, because it's so slow and there's no real good blood flow, it hurts.
Right.
And getting past that pain and understanding all that kind of stuff is a whole different animal too. But
so you're thinking about an injured tendon. When we injure a tendon in our elbow, say.
Sure.
That you're right. I'm dealing with it right now on my right wrist, and I'm told 6 months. So it's getting better every day. But
yeah,
I was told it's tendons in 6 months. That's what Bresnan said.
I'll give you. I don't know if you took one of those little physical therapy packets that we had at New England's last year, but I've been using them. I'll send you one if you don't have it. But it's got all kinds of wrist exercises with a light band. I really feel like it makes a huge difference.
I didn't see that. I'd love to check that out.
Yeah, I'll send you one because I think it's pretty cool. But I mean, what you were saying about dad strength, everybody always jokes around with that. But I mean, like George Foreman is an excellent proof of that. I mean, you lose your speed, you definitely lose some fine motor control, but you don't lose strength. And Norm is another example of power lasting basically as long as you continue to maintain it. Right. And I think it is an advantage for us. And I don't know if you've had the same experience, but when I've pulled in open classes and masters in the same tournaments, I usually will either win or lose faster in open. And the masters matches always seem to be much more difficult and drawn out affairs. And I do think it has to do with a lot of the people in that class have been pulling for 20, 30 years, and they have very high arm wrestling IQ, so they adjust better. Yeah. And it always seems like it's much harder to get victories in that class.
Just smarter.
Yeah.
It seemed to me that with the WAL competition, that changed arm wrestling. It changed the style, the strap setup, changed the way you have to pull on the strap. You can no longer do a strap setup like Ron Armini in the WAL. He has it down perfectly for pre-WAL. The guys in the WAL doing things a little differently, and it took me a long time to figure it out, to even be able to compete because of the way they went through, or just the whole thing. It was a learning curve. Yeah. So now I feel like the younger guys that are coming into this sport have new ideas, new techniques, and some work, some don't. But if they work, well, I'm gonna pick up on it. Right. If I see it works, well, how much proof do you need?
For sure.
So I got questions stacking up for you here, but I want to let's get the pissing off John part of the show out of the way and talk a little bit about WAL since you brought it up. So you didn't go. I don't know if you want to talk about why you didn't go, or just your general feelings about where the WAL is and whether you think it's going to be able to make a comeback.
Well, I started the WAL in the beginning with John. We had a plan, and we stuck with it. So I felt like I was learning and becoming a better arm wrestler with all this, and I dedicated myself to that aspect of it. The fact that it's over with now, I see it as over. I'm planning on moving on. I can't really imagine anyone that would trust them enough to show up again. Yeah. But that's just me. So there's a PAF event going on in Jersey in October, I think, a few hours away. I plan on going to that. New England's, of course, unless they're on the same day. And just go with it.
Yeah, I would be very shocked if it was still around. And I my feelings on it are pretty clear as well. I can't imagine why anybody would stand behind that just based on, everybody has mirrors in their house, I think, and you have to look at them every once in a while. So just based on that, I can't imagine, how could you ever,
I agree with you.
Well, I mean, we don't have to go over it all over again, but I mean, the fact is, when you burn people like that, they don't come back. It's that simple. And a lot of people got burned, and for reasons that you spoke about earlier as well. It's like, there's an ethics issue and there's an integrity issue, and that's means a lot to a lot of people. And for that reason, you can see. I mean, I think the PAF's a good idea. AAA and USAA and USAF, all those guys that have been around for a long time doing stuff, I think their turnout for all those events is going to be what it should be, And if the WAL does try to do something, which I severely doubt that they're really going to try to do anything, because usually when they say, "Oh, we'll be back," it's bullshit. They're not going to be back. But even if they did come back, I know none of us are going to go, and there's a lot more people that feel that way. There's too many good events that we have already. And they deserve our attention, so.
Absolutely. And with that said, I can't put anybody down for going to the WAL finals. I understand. We all love arm wrestling. The biggest thing for me was, for me to get from Rhode Island to Las Vegas is a huge pain in the ass.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to sleep in the airport. And I just, after everything that happened, I just wasn't interested. I just had to drop it.
Yeah. I don't know if I ever said it on the show or if I just said it to Josh after the show, but my opinion on the WAL finals is similar to yours, which is I understand if you went, even if you didn't really want to after that, because everything, you got things booked and all that kind of stuff. Like, dude, some of us, if it's, if you got $1,200 invested in the trip, I'm not eating that,
Right.
I wouldn't have pulled probably, not probably, I wouldn't have pulled, but I understand if you did, just because it's like, well, all my arm wrestling family is here. I'm going to, it's hard to not jump in. But
and I'm sure when it changes everything too.
Of course. And, but I know I can pretty much guarantee that the 99% of the people that were involved were so happy the day it was over, because there wasn't this internal struggle, right? I mean, I was talking to a lot of my friends who were going, and they were like, I have so many reasons to go and I have so many reasons not to. And I'm like, yep, this sucks, doesn't it? It's just a shitty situation. It's not even like you said, you can't judge anybody for it. It just sucks. So you end up going and doing it because you really, really, really want to do it, but you really, really, really don't want it to because it feels dirty. And it's, Vegas. I just bet there's a lot of people that were just really, happy it was over.
Right.
I think that's true. I know you're happy it's over.
Yeah.
And
I hate those
three
letters.
Bringing it up. I keep bringing it up on every show, and one of these days you're going to reach through and throttle me, I know. But anyway.
You're lucky I don't live 2 hours away from you anymore.
Yeah, because you drive over here, I know.
I would.
Let me ask some of these questions, Seth, before people start getting pissed.
Yeah.
All right. So here's a good one about injuries, because I think this is a fun one to ask you, considering your injuries and non-arm wrestling stuff. But what injuries have you dealt with in arm wrestling? And also, if you wouldn't mind giving us a few of those cool stories from how you got all that metal in your body.
Oh, all right. So arm wrestling injuries. My first arm wrestling injury was from Tim Lewis. I didn't know any better, and I felt the tendons in my arm. And I just kept going, and they popped.
Yeah.
Well, from that point on, I realized that when you feel something like that, you should go in a different direction.
Sure.
And let that alone before you break it. That was a huge learning experience. And I cursed him for a long time over that, but it's being funny about it.
Sure.
So arm wrestling injuries are scary. I am always thankful that I'm usually not involved in it. And I don't like to discuss it because I feel like that puts me in a position.
Yeah.
The metal in my body came from racing motocross since I was a kid. And maybe that's where hand strength comes in. I don't know.
For sure.
Dirt bike.
I think so. And Ron Columbia used to talk about that with me too, because Ron used to race flat track. And he was like, dude, my hand strength came from that. I know it did. Because it's hard to hold on to a bike for that long.
Of course.
And control it. And control it, too. Not just holding on, but you got to control. You have to have fine motor control while you're doing all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I know he believes that, so, who knows, man?
So for 15 years, I raced dirt bikes, and I wasn't very good at it. I had bigger balls than brains.
Sure.
So I'd crash a lot. But after I crashed, I got good at crashing, so I didn't mind it so much. It was the hospital I didn't like, or sitting still for 2 months or 3 months because you broke your hip.
Mm-hmm.
I would say in 15 years, at least once a year and a half, I spent 2 months on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got older, I owned my own business, so I was able to keep the business running from the couch, more or less, until I got to about 35, and I realized that I don't heal as fast as I do, like Josh was saying.
Mm-hmm.
I do not heal at 35 as fast as I did when I was 15 or 20, and that was it. The painkillers stopped me from hurting myself. So for as long as I was on Percocet, say, that was the hangover. The hangover was 2 months. So I'm on Percocet for 2 months out of the year, and my hangover is 2 months. There's 4 months out of the year that I'm not right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It was hurting my friends, my family, myself. And
Yeah. After a while, what good is coming out of it, right?
yeah, no good. And I wasn't good at it. So before I quit, I won a championship, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I quit like George Costanza and left the room.
I don't know how I know, man.
I love that story, man. I never thought about that, but you're really making a good point with the grip strength and the motorcycle stuff, because I have not ridden them anywhere near as much as you have, Seth, but I do remember my hands hurting like hell when I was done riding it.
Like arm pump.
Yeah. That's a good point. Let's see here. All right, Top Roll Low wants to know if you can see your side pressure machine, or if you have any of your tools nearby that you can show us. Yeah.
All right, let's find it. So what am I going to drag the camera over here? I can make
All right, drag it away. Let's see if this works.
Yeah,
If it gets
I definitely
unplugged,
can't
it's
drag
not my fault.
I'm good, but I'm not that good.
I don't know if you can see me, but here's the side pressure trainer. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it off
right.
the table and show it.
Yeah, if you guys ever...
So I'm able to unscrew a handle down below and bolt this onto just about any table. It's a spring.
Oh, I remember that thing. I remember that.
And it's adjustable. It took me quite a few tries to get it right, but this flops, so you have to squeeze it, or you can't use the tool.
Mm-hmm.
So there's your hand strength, and then the side pressure. I learned works better if you just hold it. Static pressure. Is that what that is? Static hold.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna wreck your elbow. And we have different gears. The only person I've seen put this in high gears, Bresnan. And I watched this is Chrome Molly. I watched it bend, and he backed away from it, and he said, I'm not touching that thing again. It's going to hurt
me.
So you kind of have to control that handle like the Ross machine at Ron's, right?
Yes, you have to squeeze the handle, or it's going to flop, and you can't use the tool.
Right.
The pickle.
That's brilliant.
Or I made my own roller
Oh, okay.
out of 6-inch pipe with a big handle.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. Walter Meehan brought over the pipe. He's a plumber. Leftover pipe. Piatek brought some parts, and I put a bunch together and gave them away.
Nice.
So everybody had one. Granite Arms got one. Clemba got one. Whoever wanted it.
Sweet.
That's cool.
Man. Yeah, I had when I was preparing for Ermini, I had a big fat 4-inch handle that I was deadlifting with.
Yeah.
And just because I'm like, the guy has a monster hand, I don't want it to feel like a monster hand. So I was basically just deadlifting with that, and I'm like, I'm going to get to body weight with that thing, with just totally controlled, right? And I did. I got to body weight, and I stopped because my hand was wrecked. And it was probably like 3 weeks before, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I gotta cut back on this thing, but I gotta get to 175. So I got to 175, and I backed up. But in my opinion, it definitely helped a lot, just gripping up and not feeling like I can't close my hand. You know what I mean? Because sometimes Ron's not small, and he's got a big hand, and he's not easy to deal with. So I'm like, I don't want to feel like my hand's open already. He's just gonna rip it open. So
Yeah.
No, you can definitely speak highly about Armini's hand.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt about it.
All three of us can. We've all experienced it.
his hand strength and back pressure was such where I could never muster an offense against him. Ever. Yeah. I had to pull only defensively. Because if I did, I would have just bounced off of it. I would have lost more than I gained. And it was just because of his setup and his hand, and it was just, it was scary. It was being tough. Down 2-0. It was terrible.
That kind of adds to what Josh was saying. I can kind of comment about what Josh was saying. I just lost it. So many, talking about so much stuff. Sorry, I'll get it back.
It's all good.
While you're waiting to rejuggle that memory from our elderly brains that we both possess, Top Roll has a follow-up question. So he says, so you just pin and hold it down? He's referring to your machine when you're practicing your side push. Yeah. Okay.
You can go for reps, but it hurts. Yeah. And over time, I realized that it's wearing out parts. Whereas a hold is
what we do anyway.
The same job done.
And it's what we do anyway. It's a little more accurate to what we do, I think, and all the reps and stuff, especially with it's basically what you're talking about is a joint exercise at the end of the day. The muscles involved are very small. That's just a recipe for unnecessary tendonitis. You're probably going to get it anyway. Like, why just ask for it?
Right, exactly. Let's see what other we get for questions here. Okay, this is a good one. And I'm going to add to it. Are there people in particular that you want to try to match up with this year? And since WL is gone, what kind of, what are you going to be, what kind of tournaments? You mentioned the two local ones, one in New Jersey and New England, but are you going to, would you be interested in pursuing WAF stuff or?
Well, because this is a hobby, I'm realizing now after this year, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm willing to get on a plane again. I say that. I will. I just say that because it's kind of the point where
it hurts inside.
You're making a commitment.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I want to leave the country to arm wrestle.
Yeah.
ISIS. I don't want to arm wrestle ISIS.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I think it's like Chicago, man. Like most of these countries that you go to, and you'd be worried about bumping into some madmen. You're most likely not going to see anybody that is any crazier than people you might bump into in your own town. I would love to see you go to WAF one year.
I'd like to go to Hungary. That would be cool.
Yeah.
It's just not the route I picked.
Right.
Armini and I had a conversation about this. He says, I'm going this way, you go that way. That's what we did, and my road was a dead end. Right. His is still open. So that's this year.
Yep.
And sometimes I feel like I have a Facebook account just to find out when the arm wrestling tournaments are.
I hear that. I definitely hear that.
Just wait and see. And we still train every day, and wait and see what happens.
Yeah, and what you're going to see, too, in my opinion, is you're going to see tournaments like, Arnold's, Mike Gould Classics, all these great tournaments that have always been around with great promoters and great everything. Yeah. I think you're going to see those become like what they were, which is these incredible, showcases of talent, right? So
I hope so.
There's always a place to go, and it's all up and down. Like everybody looks at this game with very, very temporary eyes, because we all get caught up. We all get caught up in everything, whether it's good or bad. Oh my God, this is so great. I cannot, we got to support this because it's going to be our ticket out of here or whatever, where we're at now, basically. And then everybody, the people who are like totally against all that or against something, they're both wrong. The sport will always be here. Mm-hmm. When that whole controversy with Luke Kent going on about, they let him back in. Is that right or wrong? Or did he do this or did that? Is arm wrestling, is his career over? Of course it's not over. All these leagues, the newest league and stuff will be here, much shorter time than arm wrestling will be. Arm wrestling will always be there.
I don't know Luke, and I don't really know what he did, but we all have our moments.
Exactly.
I know I do. Mm-hmm. So I don't blame him for anything. Or I wouldn't blame the WAL for letting him back in. If I felt it personally a problem with it, then I'd have a talk with Luke. But I don't know him. So doesn't affect me.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I think, part of the issue with the WL is they created a large number of sensitivity issues because they had all their little rules that you couldn't violate, like the contract stuff and the T-shirts and the logos, and it definitely has upgraded the whining, I think, in our sport to a point where it hasn't been, at least in the time that I've been involved. And it's still going on. I mean, this the whole thing with the stickers, for Christ's sake. People are peeling stickers off hammers, and half the people don't care, which I think is the correct approach. And some people who made the hammers are upset about it, which I also understand. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a fucking sticker on a hammer. You know what I mean? It's like we have more important things to worry about, I think.
I guess there's two reasons I would think for all this. One would be the entitlement issues that everybody has in this world now.
There's some of
or
that
in my area. And the other would be that they expected so much of us, but they didn't hold themselves at the same standard. And I'm not talking about individuals.
Right.
I'm talking about whoever is the boss of the WAL. Maybe it's Steve, I don't know. But they didn't hold up their end of the bargain and expected us to bend over backwards for them. For less money every time.
Right.
That was offensive to me.
I'm happy that we're going to be back in the hands of people like, Frank and Karen Bean and Denise and Leonard and Bill Collins and, Anthony Letterio and PAF. I mean, I'm happier, traveling for people like that, that we know and we know are not going to let us down. And, I always feel like I felt bad for them being involved in WL because we all know how awesome they are, and they ended up having to take a lot of the blame for WL's fuck-ups. And it's really not fair. So I'm glad that this year they should at least be able to reap some rewards for it. I know they will for me. I'm definitely going to all of the events that I can.
Yep. I agree with that. I was so impressed with the way that everybody that ran the finals, especially from my perspective, especially Karen, took the time to answer people's questions or complaints or whining. She handled everything like a professional.
Yeah.
And the nice part about it was, like you said, we have trust in these people. So it's okay. I understand. She's trying to help us, even though she's in a bad position. Her, Frank, Bart, they were put in this position. They're not bad people by any stretch of the imagination.
Of course, absolutely not.
Hell no.
And Reza too. I mean, he's not getting much props part of it. And Travis, there's a lot of guys. Reza just pointing out that the event at least was salvaged, and it was salvaged. And I think the fact that it was salvaged is the one bit of good news from that whole thing, because I think it would have been as bad as it was. It would have been 10 times worse if some kind of event didn't happen. Despite all the issues you brought up, John, I'm glad it happened. I'm glad people had an opportunity that people that wanted to go had an opportunity to go. And
yeah, for sure.
As we talked about in the show, in a very positive fashion, is that it shows the strength of our community. I mean, Karen's today taking all kinds of heat for the sticker stuff, and she's still standing up and she's talking and she's answering everybody. She doesn't back down from stuff. She always sits out there and takes whatever it is and explains things, and that's something that we didn't get a single time from Steve Kaplan. We tried to get him on the show 100 fucking times. He never came on. We got Ben on. We got James Reed on, but we never got Steve on. And we never really got an explanation as to why not. And he only would release those little videos where he controlled the message completely. He never spoke to us. You know what I mean? In any kind of public format. And I think it's a bad sign. But all the people behind the scenes, completely different. Yeah, so anyway. All right, more questions. Let's see what we got here. Did you remember what you were going to mention before? Or is this
no, but I'll get to it.
Rallying around in there somewhere. Okay, let's see here. This is a lot of easy questions. Mike Homewood trained with you. I think he's trained with you a few times, right?
Yes, of course.
He trains.
Monster.
Yes. Well, this is arthritis in the knuckles from grip training. I guess we can all answer this one. I think the actual research on that indicates that if you're going to get arthritis, you're going to get it regardless of what you do with your life. And that training, if you're doing...
Oh, Josh. You're frozen, buddy. Well, arthritis in the knuckles.
Okay, so
He's trying.
Lee.
He's trying to mount a comeback.
I'm okay. It's like
I thought for a second it came back, Seth. Are you back with us, Josh?
I can hear you guys fine. So.
Oh yeah, you
Be
were.
careful
You
what you
couldn't.
say.
We didn't miss whatever your wisdom was.
That was the smartest thing I've ever said too. So it's too bad that you guys missed it. No, what I said, if you can hear me, is that the research indicates that if you are going to get arthritis, you're going to get it regardless of what you do. So I don't think it's from grip training or anything else like that. However, what you said that was smart was that when you start getting those signals from your small joints that they're very sore and you should lay off them, if you keep pushing it, then you likely will instigate some kind of injury.
absolutely, absolutely. I'm all about going in a different direction if I feel pain. It's not worth hurting myself. For me, it's not worth hurting myself. I'll take the loss before I go to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have to go to work tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but
train like a motherfucker. Fuck arthritis.
For the arthritis,
Pretty much.
I think it might ward off arthritis. I think arthritis might be hereditary.
Right.
In my family, anyways, it is. And maybe my experience in my life has been that if I just abuse whatever's bothering me, if I obsess over it and try to kill that area, like we spoke about before, you have to be smart about healing.
Yeah.
But if I try and kill that area, it seems like that's how I heal it. It has to be a hard day and rest. You have to do both. It has to be everything.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And really no different than it has to be, there's balance everywhere, right? You have to have power and endurance. You have to have speed and control. You have to have, at the end of the day, all these things. If you have too much on one side, you're probably going to get injured.
Yeah, absolutely.
Training your extensors instead of your flexors, all that kind of stuff that a lot of people leave out,
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the most pain I feel is if I don't work out.
Oh yeah, that's why I hate that 9 days, 7 days rest before a tournament. I feel like terrible. I just feel like stiff and achy. My thumbs hurt. Like, why do my thumbs hurt? And I pulled almost daily, and my thumbs hurt now. Like, what is wrong with me?
Your brain's playing tricks on you.
Yeah. Well, I remember reading a study a little while ago where your pain sensors and your movement sensors share pathways. So there is some science to why, I really feel sore until I warm up a bit, or I felt sore until I started pulling a little while. That half of those pain receptors are actually movement receptors as well. So when you start moving, when you start using things, you feel less pain because you have to move it. Your brain is telling you to move it, which makes a lot of sense because, I know, like you said, if I rest, that's when I feel the worst. I just start to stiffen up and I just don't feel good. Like whenever I wake up in the morning, I feel worse than ever. Like I could be training 2 times a day hard. I wake up not that bad. If I take that rest, everything hurts.
Yeah, it's hypertrophy. That's what they call it. I mean, we've all. I agree because I take 3 weeks off before nationals and before worlds, and the first 7 or 8 days it sucks. Everything hurts, and I'm like, I'm dead. But then after 10 days, when I'm doing super light stuff to keep the blood flow, I start to feel unbeatable. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I do know what you mean. Yeah, and, talking about that rest period. Up until my shoulder issue, left-handed, I didn't even notice the rest period. Meaning, I had experimented a couple times. I remember when I was back in the Northeast, that first fair tournament in Connecticut, you were at, Seth. Walcott. I went into that with 2 days rest from pulling.
It was the shirt.
It was the shirt, one. It was my fan club, too. But I pulled 8 classes that day, and I felt pretty damn good. Now, could I have been better if I rested? Probably, but I felt okay. Since this shoulder problem, I feel a huge difference between not resting and resting, which was, for me, an indicator to call this thing a wrap and get it looked at, because I never had that feeling before, and I still don't have it right-handed. So it's like, okay, the extra rest that you need for injuries too might be a good indication of like, okay, this might be more than just like an ouchie, right? This might be a real injury.
Right. That's right. We're used to handling pain, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And like you said, like you have a obsessive personality, I share that as well. So the very, very last thing I want to do naturally is stop. Like, no, it's fine. I'd rather it bust open. I'd rather it bust apart than stop. That's
Nobody likes a quitter.
Easy. Like if I just had a choice of like just my guts, like my first instinct, no problem. I'll go until it's bone. No problem. No, not a problem. Yeah. But then, you use your brain as best I can.
Reality's in. Yeah.
Yeah. And,
It's. I think this is a fascinating subject because we're all used to training so hard. At least those of us who take it seriously every day, all that kind of stuff. So we're used to being sore, and we're used to, working through it. And then when you stop, it's inevitable that you start feeling like a loser and you're slacking off and you should be doing something. But, running, all sports, they take rests before they get to the big time, because your body recovers, all the muscle fibers heal, and then they're at your point, you take that bit of rest.
This is like Josh
dubstep. Out of it.
You turn into a robot, Josh.
Yeah, but you I need better Wi-Fi. You know what? It's probably because my son's upstairs watching Pokemon or something like that, man.
It's okay.
That's what's going on.
You should be climbing rope or something. Yeah, it's funny.
My son, speaking of slacking off, he should be climbing rope.
Yeah, but you talked about the difference of when we take rest, we feel like a loser. Or we feel like we're not doing anything. We feel like lazy, all that stuff. And that's where the mindset in the reality of things, and we talked about this with Vigent a little bit, which he's like, man, I hate that rest. I just, I'm not that guy who wants to sit around. And there has to be a big understanding between training and getting better and peaking to be your best, right? So you really should be kind of knocked around and beat up and all the time. You should never be 100% if you're training for something. There's just, if you're not training hard enough, or you're enhanced, which, whatever is what it is.
Like you.
Yeah, like me. I would know. So, but there's a big difference between, if you're preparing for an event that you want to do very well at, that means a lot to you, you don't want to come in at 100%. You want to come in at 102% or 103%. You want to be the very best that you've ever been. And the only way you're going to get that is by compensation, your body compensating for the fucking torture you put it through. And that's by letting it finally take a rest when your immune system and your everything is firing it so high that when you finally do put the brakes on, you're better than you've ever been in your life. And
exactly.
as hard as that week or however long, 3 weeks you take, as hard as that is, the whole thing has to be like that mindset of like, I don't want to be the best I've ever been. I don't want to be 100%. I want to be the very best I've ever been, which is better than 100. Right. Which is why we're all fucked up the most after a tournament. I feel the most sore. I have the worst trainings for like 2 weeks after a tournament. I have the worst trainings.
My training would be, I can't take 3 weeks off, but I need to skip. I need 2 weeks off from arm wrestling.
Right.
That's a given for me. I can't arm wrestle. I don't arm wrestle a week before a tournament, but I do lift weights, and lifting weights to me is simple. We know how to do that.
Yeah.
It's a basic movement, so we don't really have to think too much to lift weights. But what I can think about is arm wrestling. So even though I'm not arm wrestling on the 2 weeks I take off, I probably really only take off 3 or 4 days from lifting.
Yeah.
Just enough to heat.
Yep.
And in that time, now I'm getting my mind ready for what I want to happen at the tournament. I know what I want, and I know what it takes to get to the end. So once you figure that out and you set your mind to it, then that's just my mentality anyways.
Yeah. I take my rest is usually either 7 or 9 days, one or the other. Depends if I'm cutting weight, depends on how beat up I am, all that kind of stuff. But I'm in your boat. I don't stop lifting, even if it's like light flushing, rehab-ish kind of work, a couple days out. I mean, I'm still moving around. And really,
you have to do that.
Yeah, I think so. And in my opinion, too, one of the benefits of rest from the table, because, like you said, lifting weights is simple. Also, lifting weights, for me anyway, in terms of weights versus the table rips me down. Like, it's not even comparable.
Right.
I can lift weights hard and never feel like I can't get the same kind of destruction I get on my body that I get from my training partners. So,
right.
And also, we love doing this, and we want to get better technically. So there's a lot of reasons why we pull on the table. But one of the benefits from taking that rest also is I'm dying to fucking arm wrestle as soon as I get up there, because I haven't done it in how long? Like, to me, 9 days, that's 4 training sessions I've missed. So you better get me on the table right now. Like, when's my class coming up? So there's a piece of that too. It's like I'm dying to get up there and pull.
Yeah, exactly.
And something that Ron Klumba instilled in me too is that when we're training hard and all that kind of stuff. It's an opportunity for you to showcase the fruits of your labor. You've worked hard. You've cut weight. You've done all these things. It's time for you to fucking show these people what you've done. And if you got the right shirt on, which is, something like this, you better show like what we've done. You know what I mean? It's important, right? So you end up going in, or I did anyway, with a sense of like, like when I went to Nationals in 2015, I was the only one who went. I drove 20 hours from New Hampshire to South Carolina, but Team Dungeon was in there, and I was going to show them. Yeah. And that kind of thing helps, You were
the front man, and you had to produce. That was how it works. For me, anyways, I feel like, well, the dungeon taught me things. Being there, I learned things from that, and they've showed. Tim and Ron have showed us their success over the years.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, it only makes sense to pay attention to them and figure out my own way of handling things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and what they really taught me too, as far as I've had a good experience of perspective of being training over there, moving here, training here. I get fantastic training here. I get great training. I get a lot of training. I have good training partners, guys who understand how to get better and what it's going to take to get better, not just smashing and killing each other, but getting better. And one thing that I really learned from something like the dungeon, and I can bring here and I can bring everywhere I go, is that really the difference between teams doing very well and not doing so well, as far as being good training groups and being good competitive groups, is you just have to be fucking animals. There is this is not a nice game. There's nothing nice about this. We didn't train nice, and we don't compete nice. I mean, we used to train, we used to travel together, and the morning of competition, we were like, man, you looked fucking weak 2 weeks ago. We were just busting balls and being mean as shit to each other because nobody was going to hurt our feelings at that tournament like we could. Or in training when we would be like, dude, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you better get that shit right. It was so honest and so like, because training partneritis is a horrible disease that you can get where, man, my training partner is the best in the world. Like, you can't beat this guy. And it's because you like him so much, you want him to do well and all that kind of stuff. And it's a nice thing. But it doesn't do any favors as far as like if this guy's got a problem and he's like, he's got a tournament in 6 weeks and he's feeling like shit in his rotation. Oh, you feel great, dude. Doesn't do him any favors. You need to be like, your rotation feels like shit. We need to fix that right now.
That's right. That's how it works. Find the weak spot. Find the hole in your game.
Yeah, and be the training partner who tells your training partners, here's your weak spot, and here's how we're gonna fix it. And they might go, fuck. What do you mean? That's not weak. I'm not weak. Yes, you are, dude. You're weak there, and we. Then
you open your hand, and they don't let go. You don't lose them, and you're saying, "Listen, I don't feel any back pressure here. My hand's open. If you're not paying attention here, my hand is open."
Right. Something I tell the younger training partners I have, and I tell them all, but the younger ones especially, I drill them into them. You're supposed to look stupid here in training, not on the competition table. So you don't want to be this guy who comes to training and feels this way and feels that way and comes out feeling great and I feel good about myself. And then you go to a tournament and you get fucking spanked and you don't come back to train for 6 weeks and you just lost all your progress.
Yes.
So it's like, look stupid here where it's just training and you can look dumb so that when you get to a tournament and someone puts you there, you're like, oh, this isn't so uncomfortable anymore.
Yeah. That happens all the time, too.
I definitely look dumb at practice.
I have, too.
You have to. If you don't look dumb at practice, you're not trying. I mean,
okay.
It's Go ahead.
When we're such good friends, it makes it that much more fun to be dumb at practice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is too, like your training
You can't have
partners
an
should
ego
be your training partners are an investment. It's your responsibility. It's their responsibility. That's why I get annoyed when people don't show up for practice too. It's your responsibility to get your training partners better. It's your responsibility to be there for them. Just like if you expect them to be there for you to make you stronger. It's important to be a good training partner. This whole thing, it's an individual sport, but it's a team sport too.
Yes.
And it's a heavy responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I met Tim Bresnan, I didn't know who he was. We're talking about, 5-6 years ago, maybe?
Sure.
And he said to me, who are you? What are you doing? And then he said, if you're not training with somebody, you're not going to win, bottom line. So find somebody to train with. And that's what stuck in my head. Well, the biggest guy in the room just told me what to do. I think I'm going to listen to him.
Mm-hmm. And you and I have seen Tim every week in practice. This is a guy who could go to practice for a year straight and never lose a match. He could do this if he wanted to.
Yes.
Does he ever do that? He goes to trainings and he beats the shit out of himself. We create tools to beat him.
Yes.
We make stuff so we can beat him. Like, he doesn't have to do this. He could go to practice every week and just smash people and go, I'm going home, guys. Thanks for the training. He could be that guy if he wanted to, but he never did. And, that's why, he's Tim Bresnan.
That's why we respect him.
Well, that's why that's why he can show up and
Exactly.
beat Vovoda. That's why he can do all those things, because he actually works to his potential. He doesn't work hard enough. He works harder than he can.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's one of the strengths of Team Dungeon, because there's a lot of teams around, but not everybody trains for gains. Sometimes people get stuck in like turning every training into a little competition, and we all know people that only show up to training and they get their little special position, they can smash everybody. But whenever the rare time comes that they actually show up at tournament, they get killed because they're so used to starting with everything they want.
Yes.
Instead of learning, like you guys both said, learning to work through your weaknesses. And it's unfortunate because there's a lot of training groups that are like that. We're lucky up here in the Northeast that we have so many awesome training groups, but I know that that's something people struggle with. And Ray's posting how he knows people go to training and continually get injured, and that's exactly the wrong kind of training to be doing. I mean, that's not what should be happening when you're working with people who are supposedly on your team.
Of course. And the training is what helps us to win. That's how we're going to win. So when I go to practice, or when I go to a tournament, say, I'm going to see my opponent. If my opponent has a huge bicep, well, I'm not going to attack his huge bicep. I'm going to go after his little hand.
Sure.
Or vice versa. If I see a big hand and a little bicep, well, that's how I'm going to handle things. Mm-hmm. Or if I get beat once, I am not going to give them the same setup the next time. Mm-hmm. That's the definition of insanity. Right?
Truth.
So, plus, I don't like to lose. So you just have all the tricks in the book, and you know how to use them. It's just a matter of time before that's fluent. Mm-hmm. It's second nature.
Yes.
For me, it took quite a long time for people just to keep drilling into me what they're saying. And it was especially Tim. It took me a long time to realize what he meant. Now I'm on the boat, but for a while, I didn't understand his training philosophy. I did relate to Klemba. Maybe it was because I was closer to his strength, mm-hmm. where I could actually have an arm wrestling match with Ron.
Right.
Not in the beginning, of course, but now I can.
Yeah,
I can't have an arm wrestling match with Tim. I just warmed Tim up. That's all.
No, I hear you. And, it's one thing too, like, you had to have this drilled into your head over and over again, right, to understand. It's one thing to like think about it and understand it, but you have to feel these things too. So, you're bringing up that this is all second nature. At a certain point for us, it's almost first nature too. Like if I know how someone's, I can watch a match and go, this is where that's gonna go. This is what this guy's intention is. This is what this guy's intention is. His setup is terrible for it. That guy's setup's all right for it. I can see all those things, and it's the same thing when I'm setting up with somebody. I know where they're gonna go. I don't get surprised anymore. Now, can I stop it always? No. Sometimes it's just you do everything right and they're just fucking flat out stronger than you, and that's just the way it's gonna be.
Right.
But those trainings and those building, talking about people getting injured more than they progress at trainings. If you're not building those very, very solid fundamentals of when you get to the table and you set up with somebody, you don't have a slightest clue what they're going to do, or even more important, you're thinking still about what you're going to do. Like, you're going to be way too slow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I'm pulling against some guy, I can get their wheel spinning. That's even better because I'm going to hit them. They're not going to hit me. They're still thinking about what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole part of the manipulation thing that we were talking about before too. Is basically like, I'm going to make you do something because I'm going to make you think something. Now, if that's
you spoke about that before, John. I think the way you said it before was even smarter than the way you just said it now, and that's
hard to believe.
Yeah, I know. But you're on a roll right now. Like, you basically, and I agree with this idea, and again, it brings back to the martial arts, or even actually motocross racing, is you do something long enough, you don't think, you just adjust. So whatever someone does to you on the table, you adjust without thinking, and that means you're always ready to go. So you don't have to, let me do this, and then they say go, and you're not ready. Because of the amount of time you spend in training and arm wrestling, you learn to adjust much more quickly than you could possibly do it if you were thinking it out step by step. And I think that's a big part of the reason why you don't get surprised as frequently the more you train and the more time you spend on the table.
Right. That's exactly right. You just build up that instinct to be, I'm not necessarily even concerned with what they're going to do. And that comes across as this arrogant statement like, you can do whatever you want. No. The thing is that you just clear everything. The only thing I'm worried about is, am I set up where I want to be set up? Basically, do I feel uncomfortable? No. Okay, check. You throw that out the window. Okay, ref, say go. That's all I'm worried about. Just say go, because if you train correctly, things like straightening your wrists, squaring your shoulders, all this stuff is just elementary. If you train correctly, this should not be uncomfortable. This should be where you start.
That's why we train correctly, so that we're prepared. If we trained incorrectly, then, like you're saying, what good would it do?
Right.
Be great at practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to work at a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. And I do think that's a whole. You can always fix that. And if your training partner is not providing that, you have to adjust the way you train so you're getting it, because it's vital.
It's very important. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen people take losses because they can't square their fucking shoulders right. You know what I mean? Are you kidding me?
Silly.
You walked into this tournament and you took an ass whipping because this took you too long or was what? That's almost as bad as not making weight.
Super smart right now.
I'll try and
we're so smart right now. Everybody's agreeing with us. So it shows how intelligent we all are on this show.
Good thing.
I mean, we're on a roll, you guys. We did skip a whole section of the WAL argument that was happening on here. I was going to talk about it, but I was like, I think I did enough pissing off of John.
Yeah, I don't want to hear those letters anymore.
I will say there's one good point they made without using any letters, is that there was a lot of exposure that was gained through this experiment that happened, and although that particular experiment failed, and Game of Arms before it, all that exposure is beneficial for our sport, and I wonder if anybody will be able to capitalize on it in a way that's actually beneficial to arm wrestlers as well in the coming years.
Let's hope so.
I hope so too.
Well, yeah, I mean, go ahead, Seth.
The other benefit I was thinking about that we benefit from is, I think we all became better arm wrestlers because of the WAL. The competition in the WAL was steep.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I became a better arm wrestler. So I can't say all negative things about the WAL. There's one positive. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the trips. I enjoyed the people. I enjoyed everything I did. It was disappointing that it ended. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's always going to be positives to all that stuff too. So absolutely, and I think I agree. Even if you say it made us better arm wrestlers. Some of that kind of made people better arm wrestlers, maybe in a way that's going to damage them temporarily with the rules and everything the way it is now. It's going to be a bit. People are going to have to really focus in training to go, okay, it has to be Like, I have to keep my elbow down. I have to do these things. You know, and I'm not trying to bash the WL in that regard. It's just a fact, right? It's a different world. But I do agree that, you know, it made a number of people better arm wrestlers because they really maybe, not that they didn't train hard before, maybe they trained as hard as they ever had trained. So, yeah, definitely. If that's like a motivation, it makes them just, you know, basically just push themselves to where they didn't know they could before. Yeah, that's definitely great.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's kind of how it worked because I felt like if I'm going to spend, say, $1,000 to go to a trip, a tournament, well, I'm going to work as hard as I can to get there.
Oh, hell yeah.
I'm not going to just show up.
Mm-mm.
That wouldn't make any sense to me. I mean, if it was a walk down the street, that's one thing, but you're going to fly to Las Vegas, that's a different story.
Yeah, if you're going to, you know, make an effort, you know, get on a plane, all that kind of stuff, you better be ready.
In the beginning, there was $20,000 on the line.
That's a whole different story,
there's
too.
There's a little motivation for you.
Uh-huh.
Agreed. Jojo Lorette wants to know what both of your opinions are about the Craig Tullier RVJ match coming up in New England. I'm going to be quiet since I'm organizing the event.
Okay, Dana White. Go ahead, Seth.
I don't know that I can say who's going to win. I am respectful and I admire the both of them for their unbelievable power and style.
Mm-hmm.
Right-handed. Specifically right-handed. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Craig's an animal. Rob's no slouch either, man. I can't compete with either of them right-handed. So I don't really know. I'm not at that level right-handed.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope someday maybe I can say I am that level left-handed. I'm trying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying, but maybe I get lucky, maybe not. I don't know yet.
Well, yeah, I don't think luck has much to do with it, Seth. You seem like you've always been a hard worker, so. But my opinion on RVJ and Tullier, I think, more importantly, just obviously they're two absolute animals, but more importantly, I think the stylistic matches is really interesting because, what Craig's gonna come at Rob with, not that he can't. Well, no. Well, yeah.
No, he does.
And not that he can't do it too. So I think that Rob can pull in a way that Craig pulls. It's just that Craig is so explosive, and he's so exact, and he's been doing this for a long, long time. And Rob,
I'm gonna say one thing.
All right.
And that's that. Even though I said I was going to keep my mouth shut, I'm so bad at following through in the things that I say sometimes. But anyway, the one thing that totally fascinates me about this match is the way they get a grip. Because Rob is very simple. He doesn't want to argue about stuff. He just wants to get a grip he thinks is fair on both sides and go. And Tullier will play with his head and change everything up and screw up with the grip and play every kind of trick he can, which is because he's a very intelligent arm wrestler. And that part by itself, I can't wait to see.
Yeah.
From what I can see in their styles, I feel like if Rob can hold Craig's hand and contain that hit, or the second hit, then he might get it. Mm-hmm. That's how I see it happening.
Yeah.
If he can hold onto his hand.
I feel similarly. And then we also have to discuss, the chance and, reality of possible straps. All these things make this match really interesting. I can't wait just to see it because, again, they're two masters of what they do. And, Rob's a physical freak, and he's also a pretty damn good arm wrestler, too, on top of that. Yeah. And Tullier is just basically lightning. He's so fast and he's so exact. And, I think when I saw that match got put together, that's awesome. And also, they're very, very close to weight, too. Like, these guys are guys like Seth who pull 195 because they're 195 pounds. And I think Craig's like 180 or 88 or something like that. He's like 190.
190.
But these are guys who are legitimate, no one's coming down from 220 and saying 195. Right. And no disrespect to them for that, but, they're legitimate at their weight. So Very exciting for sure. I love that matchup.
I'd say.
Yeah. It amazes me that 3 years of WRL, they never had a match. That was the part I was shocked by.
That's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. And then the other one is Caderet versus Michael Gould, and those two have also never pulled. So I'm psyched about that one, too. I know Michael is very, very excited about it. He thinks that Jerry's going to be a huge challenge for him, which, of course, is true for anybody. But Michael's very psyched about it, so I'm looking forward to that one, too.
Absolutely. Everyone's going to be into that.
Yeah. Plus, it's fun seeing two gigantic guys at the table always.
Yeah, that's a lot of beef.
It is a lot of beef. But it's going to be tough for the refs in both of those matches, so I'm glad it's not going to be me.
Yep.
Let's see. What else did I miss? There's tons of questions here. I'm sorry if I missed some of these guys because they're coming like in 10 every second. All right, here's one. So Philippe wants to have that's an interesting one. Philippe versus Crazy George. Okay. That's Philippe suggesting it. That would be interesting. I would like to see that. Nutrition and supplements and that kind of stuff. Is that stuff that you subscribe to? I mean, how closely do you watch what you eat? I know you mentioned earlier that you try to eat healthy and stuff, but do you feel like it plays a big part in your training?
You are what you eat. Mm-hmm. So I try not to eat stuff in packages. Sometimes I get lazy, but we at my house usually eat a healthy dinner at a minimum. Mm-hmm. I eat fruit all day, water, supplements. I'm big on protein, so between protein and BCAAs, that's about it. Sometimes I'll drink carbs, waxy maize at tournaments. So I don't drink pre-workout. That just then I can't think straight if I have pre-workout in me. I want to be calm. I want to think straight, and waxy maize is all carbs. So there's my energy for the day. If I don't, you have to eat, of course, before the tournament. That's a given, which took me a few years to figure out.
I want to talk to you about that.
And otherwise, my diet is decent. I try not to eat fast food. Not to say it never, but I don't eat fast food. And exercise. My work is always physical. I'm not that smart, so
I disagree. That helps. I disagree with the statement about your intelligence. And let me ask you a question about eating before a tournament. Because what I actually do is I have a big dinner the night before, but I have very, very light breakfast the day of, so that when I'm going back to the blood flow issue that we talked about earlier and drawing off, the running that I do and races and stuff like that, I want my blood flow to be concentrating on my muscles rather than digestion.
Okay.
So what do you think about that?
What do you think about arginine as a supplement?
I don't take supplements, so I can't answer you intelligently on them, but I know that it's one that a lot of people take.
Okay, so for me, arginine is a vascular dilator, which I assume gets more blood to your muscles and everything else. That's every day for me. Arginine, and there's all sorts of benefits to that if you investigate arginine. But the food portion for me started when I started lifting weights and learning about lifting weights from older guys. That when I shake, it's because I need to eat. So now I realize if I don't eat and I'm at the table and I'm shaking, well, that's why. So, for the first couple of years I was too nervous to eat, but now I'm not worried about that. So I just follow in John's footsteps and pig out on swine.
Yes. Yeah, that is one time where the healthy eating goes out the fucking window. Is the morning before, the morning of.
If I have an hour to digest, well, it is what it is.
Yeah, me and Seth and Timmy and all we've wrecked many a buffet.
Oh, Jesus, I'm sure you have.
They start crying when we walked up.
Buffets.
Yeah, they start crying when we walk up. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I know what you mean. You got to eat something so you have enough energy to not feel weak during the tournament. So, like when I would do like those 24-hour races and stuff, I usually would wake up in the morning and have like a like a candy bar that I really like, something like a fast break that's very calorie dense, and then I would have another one like halfway through the event, and the rest of the nutrition that I would get would come through like Tailwind, which is like a runner's version of Gatorade. Yeah. So I've used that same model in arm wrestling just because and again, I don't have research to back this up, but I mean, I feel like, you do expend a lot of blood use and digestion of food. So if I minimize that, I feel lighter and I feel like my blood is more available to feed my muscles.
Yeah. And that's what you're trained to do. That's what your body is used to. So that might be the best bet for you.
That's a good point, though, because we're all so different. That working for me has no basis in reality on it working for other people. And like somebody gigantic.
I've come up with a different system, which is just don't have muscles. So I don't need any of that shit. I don't need any blood flow stuff. So
if I was going to run a triathlon, if I was that person, I would want to eat the way you eat. That makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With what you do.
Yeah.
You can't pull over and eat a cheeseburger, that's for sure.
You definitely can't do that.
Right.
So some people are saying they do what I do, and some people are saying they eat during the tournament, they eat straight through because they don't want to feel hungry or drained. So it probably is a very individualized thing when it comes down to it.
Yeah, I try to pick out things like fruits and stuff like that during the tournament just because it's real quick sugar. It's, you don't want to feel like nauseous because of how much you eat and everything like that. Usually before a tournament, you have some time to digest and hang out and that kind of stuff. But like during a tournament, if I have like a handful of raisins or some apples or something like that, you're gonna feel great. It's certainly not gonna make you feel worse. So,
right.
A few people have asked this question, and I forgot to ask it the first two times, Seth, and that is, how much of a role do you feel that genetics plays in our sport?
Huge.
I think that's please huge. Say not much. Please say not much.
I only say that because I only think that way if I lose. I get mad and I have to blame it on something.
Sure.
I blame it on people like Philippe, who is an athlete. Mm-hmm. Philippe is a 20-year-old athlete, and I feel like he doesn't have to try as hard as I do because he's already built that way. Ron Klumba is another amazing individual. Along with, I can put John in this category too. We go in, all right? You go into Ron's house. There's a band, there's musical instruments set up, drum and guitar.
So yeah, there is.
They play a song. John plays the drums. Ron will play the guitar. Mm-hmm. Then they switch. Mm-hmm. They play another song. And you feel like you're at a concert. But I'm upset because I can't play the guitar. I've tried. I can't do it. So all this arm wrestling, I try really hard at it. Motocross, I tried really hard. I wasn't any good at it, so I quit. Arm wrestling, I seem to be a little better at arm wrestling. So in my older age, it takes less energy. It's a little more fun. I'm not running laps necessarily at the tournament, and that's that.
Mm-hmm.
Get to talk to people like us.
Right.
I think people, like Brzezinski is a great example for me, because if you take him at his word, that which you could argue back and forth about, but if you just imagine that he never really focused on weightlifting or any kind of body weight exercises and just arm wrestled, and he and his brother both were elite right out of the box, he had something that people did not have, some internal strength level that most of us cannot access no matter how hard we train. And so there's clearly a very strong genetic factor for some people.
Yep. And that aspect also has turned into a great experience for all other arm wrestlers just to watch John's career.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I agree. It's incredible.
Sure.
I mean, I had one of my friends who he never really knew anything about arm wrestling, but he watched the documentary Pulling John. He's an elite level runner, and he just was going on and on about no one is dominant at their sport for that long. This guy should be world famous. Everybody should know who he is.
Agreed.
And, it just shows you how rare it is, because it's not like our sport is any easier than any others. So someone to be able to have that kind of dominance over several decades is just insane. And Ron Bath is another good example. When I first started when I was 16, he was the guy that would show up at a tournament, win every single weight class, both arms, and people were like, "What the fuck?" And he's still around kicking people's asses. So
he's still built like a 20-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously,
it's insane. I know someone posted a picture of him without a shirt on. I was like, dude, I need to go on a diet. What the hell? So anyway, let's see. I think there's a lot more questions about it.
Are they really?
It is
good
a long
ones?
episode. Ryan Bowen is pointing out this is a long episode. Are you bored, man? You can't be bored. What else is there to do?
Bro.
We're keeping you from getting eaten by snakes and spiders, dude.
Yeah, what are you doing over there? You got anything better to do?
No.
In Australia?
All those dangerous animals that are looking right outside your door right now, you're safe because of us. Think about that before you make fun of us.
You're welcome.
Did you guys see Ryan's video, by the way, that he posted on how he raised money to get Justin Bishop over to Australia for the super match? That was very good.
I didn't see that.
No.
Yeah, he put a whole. You should watch it. It's not long. But it's cool. He raised money relatively quickly, extremely quickly, to fly Justin over for a super match. So it's something that we could probably emulate in our local tournaments.
Yeah.
But anyway, Seth, we've kept you on here over an hour and a half now. I'm sure you have better things to do than talk to us idiots.
Oh.
And
I appreciate having me on, guys. That was great.
dude, it was awesome. We got to do it again sometime soon.
Cool.
And I got the date for the New Jersey PAF event is October 7th, which is the same day as Ronnie Beans, but it's 3 weeks before New England's. So that's good. Good timing.
Okay. All right. October 7th. We'll write that
Yep.
down. Perfect.
All righty, fellas.
Thank you very much. Have a good night, guys.
Hell yeah. Thanks,
Later.
everybody.